Today, we saw yet more evidence of two-tier Keir. Around 60 emergency workers were violently attacked by thugs and yobs at Notting Hill Carnival. That's on top of gun offences, multiple stabbings, the open, brazen drug use and the utter filth. There was some Ring doorbell footage here, which is reportedly from over the weekend, which does show people using someone's front stoop as a toilet. And that went on and on and on. Quite a few people did that, actually. Not just that particular lady there. There's another one there. Lovely stuff. Yep, that's just the things you see at Carnival, isn't it, really, in some ways? Disgusting behaviour, as Carnival revellers there just use a stairwell as a toilet. All right, anyway. Sir Keir Starmer has said nothing about any of that. 61 emergency workers assaulted. Not a word. A mother stabbed in front of her young child. Not a word. Remember when he said this about the riots after Southport?
400 people now have been arrested, 100 have been charged, some in relation to online activity, and a number of them are already in court. And I'm now expecting substantive sentencing before the end of this week. That should send a very powerful message to anybody involved, either directly or online.
So why will this Labour Prime Minister not fast-track prosecutions for people who beat up emergency workers at Carnival over the weekend? I wonder why. Home Secretary Yvette Cooper tweeted this on August the 11th. She said, there we go, police officers show great bravery keeping us safe. It's a disgrace they were subjected to violent attacks. It's time to restore respect for the police. Well, she was absolutely silent today. Why? Was it the wrong kind of people who attacked the police for you, was it, Home Secretary? Are you too afraid of being called a racist? And the media wants to cover it up, OK? We have had two absolute corkers here from Sky News.
The atmosphere continues really to be brilliant, to be a party atmosphere. But of course we know, as we heard from the police yesterday, and as we've seen sadly in recent years, that occasionally amongst the nearly million people who show up, there are stabbings, there is knife crime. There were two men yesterday and a woman stabbed. The woman, a 32-year-old, now in hospital in a life-threatening condition. She was here yesterday with her child, and so the police have to balance that, keeping people safe, maintaining order on the streets, but also allowing people to have a great time.
Yeah, and then this today as well, as several people are fighting for their lives in hospital.
You've got around 1 million people who would have attended that weekend. I was certainly one of them. I was here on the Sunday, and the vibe that I certainly picked up was one that was celebratory and quite cathartic, really, following the racist riots that we've seen in the country.
Yeah, it's all just largely peaceful stabbings, isn't it? Largely peaceful. Yesterday alone, there were 230 arrests, 49 weapons were seized, 2 gun offences, 37 emergency workers assaulted, multiple sexual offences, drugs. But it doesn't matter, does it? Because now, even if you do commit a sexual offence, you can just say sorry in Britain and you'll avoid prison. How can it not be two-tier from Sir Keir? Where's the press conference? Where's the condemnation? Where's the tweet from the Home Office telling everyone that they've already arrested is already guilty? Where are the tweets from the police publishing the home addresses of people that they've arrested? People don't feel safe because of the stuff that we saw over the last 2 days. And we have a Prime Minister who won't even acknowledge it. Do you think he's really on your side? Let's get the thoughts of my panel this evening. Columnist and broadcaster Esther Krakow. We've got the Director for the Centre of Migration and Economic Prosperity. It is, of course, the wonderful Stephen Wolfe. And we're joined by journalist Jonathan Liss. Esther, I'll start with you. I mean, that is, I think, just overtly two-tier, isn't it? I mean, why is he not even mentioning any of those things? Those people who attacked emergency workers there, should they not be fast-tracked through the courts in the same way the others were?
I mean, I get it, because obviously they have committed crimes and then they should face the full force of the law. I think Keir Starmer's logic is they're not the far right. This is 1 day. We know it's, well, 2 days. We know that it's going to end. So there are clearly limits to this. But we have this conversation about Notting Hill Carnival every single year. We have the conversation about the multiple arrests, the stabbings, the sexual assaults and all of that. And usually what we see is we have people saying, don't let that overshadow this shining example of multiculturalism excelling in Britain and all of that. And then the other side that say this is, the largest street festival in Europe, over 1 million people. This is actually operationally a success for the Metropolitan Police. But I think even in the wider context, it's still frustrating because it's become the norm. It's like, oh, it's all great, but, a few people were stabbed. But don't worry. Don't worry because, it's still operationally successful. When you get people used to the idea that a few stabbings is not one too many, but actually should be the norm, that's when they get frustrated. No one is talking about, cancelling Notting Hill Carnival, because I don't think that's...
No,
that's
you couldn't even if you wanted to, and I don't want to see it.
But the point is, we shouldn't normalise sexual assault, 230 arrests, people getting stabbed, all of that.
It's not a nice day out,
conversations.
Is it?
Look, I talk to people, particularly older Brits of Caribbean heritage, and they say the carnival that they knew in the 70s and 80s is very different now. It's full of debauchery, people twerking on bus stops, people peeing in in front of people's houses, all of these things. And we can't even have a conversation about actually good behaviour. Right? What does good behaviour look like? I dropped my cousin off at the carnival a few years ago, and I said, if I see you twerking on a bus stop, I will drag you from there and send you to the village.
What's wrong with twerking?
Why are you twerking on a bus stop? That's not the household. She doesn't come from a household where bearing your bum cheeks in public for the world to see is acceptable behaviour. That's not how we raised her.
It is if you're on Sky.
I don't think that twerking is on the par with knife crime.
No, I'm not calling it on par, but I'm talking about a general criminality and general bad behaviour. I don't think that's a good thing at all. There are kids there. Why should kids steal people's bum cheeks?
Stephen, I'll just ask you this now, right. This was a perfect opportunity for Keir Starmer or the Home Secretary to say thank you very, very much to the police who had to put up with an unacceptable amount of law-breaking and disorder and violence, and anybody who is found to have attacked an emergency worker at Notting Hill Carnival will face the full force of the law. Instead, they said nothing.
Well, do Notting Hill gear, nothing from Keir. Get excessive beer, nothing from Keir. Commit fear, nothing from Keir, as long as it's from Notting Hill. And that's the message he's sending. He's sending a very two-tier system, as you said once again. Here we are. If you complain about immigration in this country, the full force of the law, and more scarily, I expect serious sentences. I expect serious sentences coming down from the judiciary. But here, as you said, the number of arrests, which in a par were those of the first couple of days of the riots of Notting Hill, were exactly the same. I expected him to be saying exactly the same. We will be having our courts open tonight, and I expect serious
because that would stop it happening again this year. To Esther's point about this happening every single year.
And we have this conversation all the time.
Even the police officer, even one of the police officers at the Met said he's sick and tired of saying every single year there's been this level of violence. Well, the way to stop it would suppose some kind of deterrent, wouldn't it? I do put it to you, Jonathan, that
put it in Wembley.
maybe they're too afraid of being called racist to actually speak out against this shocking level of violence.
Talking about it, I just want to clarify a point with Stephen. People throwing bricks at mosques and trying to incinerate asylum seekers are not complaining about migration. Complaining about migration is not going to get you...
exactly all of the
complaining about migration is not going to get you a prison sentence.
Some of the tweets did.
No, I'm sorry.
Some of the tweets did. The guy that got done yesterday wearing a flag and he stood there through an English flag
calling for mosques to be burned down is not complaining about migration. And it doesn't serve your... I'm not saying he did it, but it doesn't serve your cause to downplay what people were actually saying and doing, and that was not the same as Notting Hill. Not the same.
I think the point here is people are being arrested online for sort of misspeaking or for wrongthink, but you have people assaulting emergency workers and the Prime Minister saying nothing.
And my point was there is a distinction. There are levels, and he should be saying exactly the same.
As you pointed out, what happened during the riots is in the context of an unfolding national emergency where we didn't know how long...
national emergency, Jonathan.
It was, as Esther herself has just pointed out, this was... the Notting Hill is an event. The Prime Minister talking about it, look, I'm not in charge of the Prime Minister's comms. I think it would have been completely acceptable to put out a statement. I think it would have been completely acceptable for him or Yvette Cooper to put out a tweet. They didn't, because, it's a police matter. In the riots, there's something that's happening, and it's obviously more political during the riots.
That's acceptable. That's the point. If you're going to try and make people feel safe in this country, if you're going to say we're not tolerating assault on emergency workers or any kind of bad behaviour, which we can all agree on, it doesn't look good when you only comment on it in one instance.
Esther, I think, can I make a really really important point, I think, which is that, of course, we need to condemn violence in Notting Hill and the scale of disorder. I don't think but also we have to take into account the sheer number of people who are there.
But we're not the Prime Minister. Us condemning
it's a separate point, though. If you look at Royal Ascot, there were 35 arrests at Royal Ascot this year. If you look at Glastonbury, there were 36 arrests at Glastonbury.
But I didn't see mass knifings attacking
proportionally, actually, it's almost as many arrests.
Well, it depends. It's the type of arrest, though. But this is the thing. The types of arrests at Glastonbury and Royal Ascot is not stabbing and sexual assault.
There are sexual assaults at Glastonbury every year. There are sexual assaults.
You see at Glastonbury are for people snorting cocaine, which I don't agree with.
There are also sexual assaults committed at Glastonbury.
But the scale is completely different. You're comparing apples and oranges. My argument is, if Keir Starmer is going to be the man of law and order and the man who's going to keep Britain safe, if you're going to say that people should be arrested online for wrong speak or for tweeting things you don't like or whatever,
it's not wrong speak, Esther. You make it sound Orwellian. It's not.
Why wouldn't you just do it? Is it not as plain and simple as actually we did have
condemn them both?
We had an awful situation involving some people who were definitely far right. We also had a load of other people who were just very concerned, right? But most of those people were white, and we had a Prime Minister who felt readily available calling all of those people out and calling them all sorts of names. And then, unfortunately, over the course of the weekend, we had a festival where the majority of people there were ethnic minorities, and Keir Starmer and Yvette Cooper have not wanted to call out any criminality.
And nor would we see from the Mayor of London. We didn't see it from Mayor of London as well. We didn't see it from any councillors. We didn't see it from the Labour. There was none of the media doing the same sort of thing. And so it's becoming very clear to people in society, whether we like it or not, that there does seem to be a very distinct element of policing, politicisation and commentary when it only relates to poor white working.
I would just vociferously disagree with you on that point, and I'm sure that everyone who's been arrested will face go through the same judicial proceedings as anyone else. And I really do have to take issue with this point, Patrick, about people complaining about migration. If you're joining a riot, you're not complaining. There are legitimate ways to complain and to protest and to express your views. Rioting is not one of them. Criminal damage is not one of them.
All right, OK, fine. Look, the overarching point that I'm trying to make with this is that there are two offences there that, for me, on paper at least, were quite similar. The attack of an emergency worker, the assault of an emergency worker. And I think one of them was highlighted a lot more than the ones that we saw over the weekend, which, as far as I can tell, weren't particularly highlighted at all. But it's a range of views there. Thank you very much for it.